On this episode of Unsung Heroes, we'll be discussing retired Lieutenant General Ishaya Bamaiyi, former Chief of Army Staff. Little has been said about this Nigerian hero, and today we'll be taking excerpts from his book, Vindication of a General. Indeed, the journey through life is a very complex one. It could be more complex for people like my humble self, who spent the most substantial time of my adult life in the military profession, which at that time played a central role in the governance of the country. Although I did not hold any political office throughout my career in the Nigerian Army, serving in important command positions and consummating it with serving as the Chief of Army Staff during one of the most controversial times in the political history of the country made me an important actor. There are challenging moments that required making a choice between what is right and what is wrong. If you are fortunate, these times are few and far between and are not that difficult to navigate. Indeed, doing the right thing does come naturally to most of us. Though it's difficult to see sometimes, good people are more than bad people in the world. On the other hand, for some of us, these challenges come not only often, but also with a fierce fighting strength, leaving us overwhelmed, overcome, and overtaken by the forces that would push us in the direction we do not wish to go. We try to stay on the right path, but these are entities that make it very difficult at times, things we cannot control such as greed and power. And when such forces end up in the wrong hands, literally all hell can break loose. This is a state in which I have found myself several times. Growing up as a young man, I had always dreamt of being a soldier, of serving in the military in Nigeria, where I was born and raised. As a young man, I realized that dream, but soon found out it was not everything I had imagined it would be. Where I had envisioned camaraderie, honor, and respect, I found secrets, lies, and backstabbing. I found corruption where there should have been transparency and openness, and worst of all, malice where only valor should have thrived. The shocking experience which I have tried to capture in this book partly derived from the experience I had growing up and the values of hard work, honesty, integrity, diligence, and mutual respect that were inculcated in me. These were the values that guided me to become a truly professional soldier and to exhibit loyalty and trust in dealing with both my superiors and my subordinates. The journey of my life began from my roots in Zuru. I was born in Senti village on the 3rd October 1945. My parents, Mr. Bamaiyi Sundu Senchi and Madam Arziki Bamaiyi, were born in Senchi village. My grandfathers, Malam Sundu from my father's side and Malam Rongo Senchi from my mother's side, died in a smallpox epidemic when they were still young. My parents grew up with foster parents. Their experience with their parents' relations as they related to us was not a pleasant one and need not be recounted here. I started school in 1955 while we were still in Bedi, though I had to travel about 8 miles to the only UMS primary school in Zuru. I had to trek to and from school Monday through Friday until I was moved to the boarding school. While at Riba, which is 18 miles from Zuru, we would go from Zuru to Riba for weekends on Friday after school and would return on Sundays. It was very interesting because there were many of us and we all had fun on the way picking up fruits. People en route were very kind to us to give us water anytime we requested for it. The only exception was one particular house about 7 kilometers from Bedi that would always refuse to give us water. We eventually named the house Gidan Meirua, meaning the house of the person who refuses to give water. That name still sticks in the minds of those of us with that experience. I was admitted to Bida Teachers College initially to become a grade 3 teacher, but as luck would have it, the grade 3 teachers courses were cancelled in 1964. Instead, I spent 5 years and became a grade 2 teacher upon passing a very difficult examination. Only 1 out of 6 persons would normally pass the examination, since one was required to pass 9 or 10 papers presented at the final examination. Failure on any of the 9 or 10 papers meant you were not qualified as a grade 2 teacher until you passed that paper, which you could retake every once a year. Our class of 1966 set a record of more than 60% passes of this exam. Out of 8 students from Zuru that year, 5 of us passed the examination at the first sitting. I went to Bida Teachers College in 1962 and my elder brother Musa went in 1963. We finished together because he was promoted and attended for 4 years while I attended for 5. We both passed our exams on the first attempt. At Bida Teachers College, we used to get monthly pocket money. In our first year, we got 10 shillings, second year, £1, third year, £1 10 shillings, and fourth and fifth years, £2. The government was feeding each of us on £3.50 monthly. Anytime there was a holiday, the total money for our feeding and transportation was paid fully to us. At that time, there was a 3-month holiday from July to September and we got a lot of money. I could not afford to spend this money because I had to take parts of it to my father to pay for my brothers and sisters' fee at the mission school. At the end of the holidays, I would take only the transport fare from Zuru to Bida and give the remaining money to my father. During one holiday I spent with my uncle, Mr. Matthew Sundu in Kontagora, my friend Ayuba Issa had to pay my 10 shilling transport fare to Bida because my uncle did not pay it. During the 3-month holiday, I worked as a road maintenance laborer 6 days a week from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at the daily rate of 2 shillings and 6 pence. There is yet another part of my experience while growing up which I need to recall for a purpose that will become clear in the course of narrating my experience in this book. This has to do with a very sensitive issue that borders on religion and the wicked tendency on that part of some This has to do with a very sensitive issue that borders on religion and the wicked tendency on the part of some Nigerians to make political capital out of it when it suits their immediate selfish agenda. I grew up in Zuru land where both Christians and Muslims lived in harmony and where religious differences had nothing to do with relationship and mutual tolerance that existed across religious divide. I have confirmed that this experience is not limited to Zuru land where I grew up. I have been told that among non-Hausa and non-Muslim minority ethnic groups in the middle belt of Nigeria, religion did not matter in people's relationship until when religion was drawn into the arena of politics. It was from this kind of humble background and experience, as well as experience of religious tolerance while growing up, that I enlisted into the Nigerian Army as a recruit in the Educational Corps and rose steadily to become Lieutenant General and Chief of Army Staff. However, the more I reflect on the challenges I encountered as to try to capture in this book, the more I am persuaded that the long stay of the military in power eroded the professionalism of the military and made the pursuit of power, influence, and wealth the primary goal of many officers. There is a strong reason to believe that the Nigerian military played a critical role in salvaging Nigeria's unity and corporate existence when it sacked the first civilian government after independence. All the accounts of the events at that time showed that Nigeria was on the verge of disintegration because of the greed of politicians and the politics of ethnicity and regionalism that divided Nigeria along dangerous fault lines. It is doubtful whether subsequent coup and counter-coups, especially in the 1990s, could enjoy the same level of sympathy considering the issues that were involved. It will be uncharitable, however, to conclude or create the impression that every experience in the military was characterized by betrayal of trusts, intrigues, and backstabbing, because I am equally proud of my record of performance in the Nigerian Army, which was made possible by working with several officers who believed in the professionalism of the Nigerian military and who remained untainted with political position. In fact, I enjoyed a fulfilled military career, which I have devoted a whole chapter to in the course of this book. Maybe it is a case of the wise saying that it takes only a few bad apples to spoil the entire bunch. One of these specimens was Major Gideon Oka, who staged a coup against General Ibrahim Babangida in April 1990. I was caught in the middle of it, abandoned by my supervising officer but fighting to defend our cantonment with a group of young officers who ended up saving the day. The aftermath of this coup, like the previous ones, left a permanent scar on the Nigerian military, especially the execution of brilliant officers found culpable in the attempted coup. Under the military regime of General Sani Abacha, other ambitious military officers, out of thirst for power and personal fame, attempted to take over power. 4 years after Major Gideon Oka led field coup, another field coup led by Colonels Gwadabe and Fadile followed. Unfortunately, I was caught up in the drama of the failed coup, which the key actors, including General Obasanjo, still do not want to admit that it truly happened for reasons you will read in the following pages. Again, 2 years later, another grab at power was made by General D. Odia, who masterminded the plot to overthrow General Sani Abacha. A part of that plan was to take me out along with General Sani Abacha, who was the sitting military president. Why? Dia knew that in his new regime, for he was certain that his coup would succeed, I would be too difficult to control. And being a bad apple, he saw only one restitution to that dilemma. There is of course more to that story which readers can follow in the subsequent chapters. But even more perplexing is the level of treachery, blackmail, and maneuvering within the inner circle of the Abacha regime, masterminded by Brigadier General Sabo and his loyalists targeted at my person. This took the form of seeking to terminate me, as it will be unfolded later in this book. As it turned out, attempts to eliminate me failed abysmally because of the level of vigilance I was forced to maintain. It was when the plan to eliminate me failed that they resorted to a new strategy of blackmail and sheer propaganda, which set the stage for my arrest and detention. But it was my determined effort to ensure that the Abacha transition program produced a credible Nigerian as president instead of the orchestrated campaign for General Abacha to succeed himself as civilian president that brought me on a collusion course with members of his inner circle. In the aftermath of the death of General Sani Abacha and the emergence of General Abdulsalami Abubakar, it was my opposition to the emergence of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo that made me a target of persecution once he took over the reins of power in May 1999. Even more revealing to me about the human nature is the breakdown of trust and understanding between other detainees and myself in the course of detention and trial. My personal perspective of what may have fueled the division among those expected to be united by the flagrant abuse of our fundamental rights is part of what I have captured in this book. Similarly, the varied reactions from supposed kinsmen from Zuru and members of my immediate family constitute a significant part of my life experience that this book seeks to bring to public attention. What I will share here is what I have learned from these events. First, I realized that while you might think you know someone well, it could turn out you do not know the person at all. The people around you might seem reliable, trustworthy, and strong because of how they act or the words they say, or because of their calculation of personal gains from such posturing. But how can you truly know what is in their hearts? I am not saying you should not trust no one, but a little bit of skepticism can be a healthy thing. Always questions, always explore, and never take people at face value. Always look for what lurks underneath. Second, and related to the first, I have learned how true it is that we do not know who we really are until we are tested. Will you fight for what you believe in, even if it could lead to your demise? Will you jump in front of the proverbial bullet to save someone else's life? What if you have information that can change the course of your nation's history? Will you reveal it to someone you know you can trust? Someone who can also step up and do what is right? These are not simple questions to answer. In fact, they are moral debates humanity has pondered as long as we have brains that think. The problem is that it is so easy to say yes to every one of them as we sit in the comfort of our warm homes with our refrigerators full of food, surrounded by our healthy, happy family members. But when you are out there on the front line, be it a military war zone or a figurative one, everything is so much different. At that point, it is do or die. Sometimes, quite literally, there is no time to debate. That is when your true self comes out to make those decisions and either way change the course of your life. The third lesson I have learned is that lesson 2 is amplified tenfold when things such as power and money are thrown into the mix. They do change everything, from how people think to the actions they come to see as acceptable in both themselves and others. Those with both are more likely to take risks because they come to believe that they cannot fail, a fallacy that is almost always disproven. Conversely, those with neither might find themselves doing things they never would otherwise when the promise of obtaining money or power is dangled in front of them. These two are a heady drug. Some people will do almost anything to get them. Last and most importantly, I have learned that even though you might think you are the most intelligent man alive, there is a chance you are the greatest fool. For it is only in humility that we find peace. When we begin to think we are better than others, that is the point at which our downfall begins.
The Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Samuel Victor Leo Manu, other service chiefs here present, the representative of the Inspector General of Police, principal staff officers, Defense Headquarters, and Services Headquarters, General Officers commanding commandants and corps commanders, senior military officers, serving and retired, members of diplomatic corps, other officers and soldiers of Nigerian Army and their families, gentlemen of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to first of all thank the mighty God for making it possible for me to stand here today on the occasion of my pulling out ceremony from the Nigerian Army. It is about 33 years ago when I first wore the proud uniform of the Nigerian Army as a recruit. And today, by the grace of the Almighty, I pull it off for the last time as a fulfilled 3-star general and one-time Chief of Army Staff. It has been a fantastic experience to serve in the Nigerian Army. There were days of hard work, days of anxiety, days of despair, and days of joy. But most of all, there was never a single boring day. Over the years, I've seen Nigerian Army soldiers perform gallantly in battlefields during the Nigerian Civil War, was in Liberia, and lately in Sierra Leone. I've seen you perform professionally in various peacekeeping and peace enforcement operations, regionally and internationally. I've also seen you perform excellently in military training exercises as in Eagle Rings 1 and 2. I've had the bitter duty as the Director of Army Staff to visit wounded soldiers and officers in military hospitals in Yaba and Creek. I've again and again had the great pleasure to see good situation reports indicating the numerous successes of our soldiers in battlefields and operations. Today, donning off my uniform for the last time, I do this with a deep feeling of sincere gratitude, satisfaction, and pride. It is a rare privilege for any officer to command so many highly professional and dedicated officers and soldiers as in the Nigerian Army. We are now in an era of a constitutional, civil, elected, democratic governance. Your duty as soldiers is therefore to strictly abide by your assigned roles as enshrined in the Constitution. You must also ensure unflinching loyalty to the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces at all times. So also to your Chief of Army Staff. Do not be found wanting in this regard. Finally, let me wish you all a safe and rewarding career in the Nigerian Army, and may you retire as I did safely back to your families. Stick together during all the good and difficult years that may lie ahead of you. Help and protect each other, and support Major General Samuel Victor Leo Malu in the same splendid way you did to me. I also wish General Malu the best of luck. I'm certain that you will also find this job most challenging and rewarding during his career. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Long live the Nigerian Army. Thank you and God bless.
To the outgoing Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General I.S. Bamaiyi, Daga. M-N-I. D-C-O-N. Hep, hep, hep. Hooray! Hep, hep, hep. Hooray! Hep, hep, hep. Hooray! Red with the blood, Henry. The blood, Henry. Run! General! Prison! May I have your permission to march off the colors and the rest of the parade, sir?
Thank you very much for the wonderful parade. I wish you luck.
March on! Let's go! To your colors!
My personal reflection on my imprisonment and the refusal of the Obasanjo regime to heed pleas for our release have led me to the conclusion that it served my purpose better that I went through the trials and was acquitted on the ground that I committed no crime against any person or the Nigerian state which I swore to defend in any capacity thrown on me by my military career. I have two reasons for this rather curious conclusion. My first reason is that if I had been released on the grounds of so-called sympathy and the intervention of some of these well-meaning Nigerians, it would have been extremely difficult for me to reclaim my moral high ground. In the first place, doubts will continue to exist in the minds of many people, including people close to me and the general public, regarding the allegations against me and the role I played or did not play. In this situation, for a court of the land to affirm your innocence clears you of all doubts about your person. Sometimes I liken my situation to that of God hardening the heart of Pharaoh not to let the children of Israel go to enable him prove his powers. I may not enjoy the enviable status of a pro-democracy fighter like many Nigerians, living or dead, but within the limits of my conviction as a professional military officer, I stood for position that I could have advanced Nigeria's aspiration to be a democratic society. The second reason is even the stronger one. Because many Nigerians came to believe at that time that Obasanjo had become a born-again Democrat and enjoyed unprecedented goodwill among Nigerians, few people would believe the storyline that my arrest and detention by the Obasanjo government was a personal vendetta. Soon after handover to Alhaji Shehu Shagari, a feat that made him a statesman in 1979, despite the ill feelings of the Yoruba, Chief Obasanjo became known as a poultry farmer in his country home in Ota. He also occupied himself with political activism through his NGO, the African Leadership Forum. The image he caught as a statesman endeared him to the whole world and became a member of the eminent persons group that brokered peace around the world, including finding solutions to the problem of apartheid in South Africa. With such a high moral standing in the global community, Chief Obasanjo became involved in domestic political affairs. One of his pastimes was to engage in the open criticism of the government of military leaders after him, even when he had the ample opportunity and access to play advisory role without doing so openly on the pages of newspaper. He criticized General Babangida's economic program of structural adjustment program as lacking a human face. He was even harsher with the Abacha regime, a point which created problem in trying to prove his innocence of a co-allegation in 1995. I think it was partly this image he caught as a foremost nationalist and patriotic Nigeria that counted for the support he enjoyed in becoming the president in 1999. There may be other reasons and dealings that we are not privy to as Nigerians, and I will not say anything further. It is for this reason that I think not a few people would have believed that Obasanjo was not acting in the public interest when I was arrested on trumped-up charges. It therefore requires the motions of going through arrest, detention and trial to purge one of wild allegations and unfounded accusations, especially allegations of doing what one had stood against all his life. I will continue to give glory to God Almighty for giving me the strength of character to withstand the machinations of the power seekers who are willing to deal with perceived enemies at all costs, even if it means taking innocent lives. In reliving my experience as a victim of conspiracy involving supposedly professional colleagues, manipulation by people you trust to act in accordance with the call of duty, and individuals who chose to betray their call to duty as senior military officers meant to defend the sovereignty of Nigeria by using the same positions to acquire political power and influence at the expense of the society, I am seeking to discharge the burden of truth. In discharging this burden, I take full responsibility for what I have said because they are based on facts that are incontrovertible. I will urge all those who are mentioned or involved in one way or the other to stick to the facts if they have the courage to challenge what I have committed into writing in this book. My account in this book is not to tell universal truth because there is no such a thing. Historians and academics will always tell you that truth often depends on the individual stating them. Truth can be contested because they are based on the personal experience and interpretation of the person rendering the accounts. That, I think, is the reason that even with the same set of facts, different people end up with different and sometimes contradictory versions of what the truth is. I have chosen to tell the truth as I know in relation to the role I played at some critical points in Nigeria's recent political experience. In telling the truth from my own perspective, I have provided as much facts as I could gather or recollect from my entire career in the army or from the four walls of the prison where my life hung in a precarious balance until the ultimate truth which set me free prevailed.